table gives information about the heights of 150 students. On the grid, draw a histogram for this information. So in order to draw this histogram, we'll need to work out what the frequency density for this table of information is. So the frequency density is equal to the frequency divided by the interval. So what we can do is we can add an extra column to this table and then work out the frequency density for these 5 pieces of information. So if we start off with the top one, we have a frequency of 15 and then the interval between the heights 140 and 150 will be 10. So our frequency density is equal to 15 divided by 10, which gives us 1.5. For our second piece of information, we have a frequency of 30 and our heights are between 150 and 155 centimetres, meaning we have an interval of 5. So our frequency density will be 30 divided by 5. And this gives us an answer of 6. And we can continue this for the rest of the table. So 51 divided by 5 gives us an answer of 10.2. 36 divided by 5 gives us an answer of 7.2. And then 18 divided by 15 gives us an answer of 1.2. So now what we need to do is draw the information onto this histogram. So the first thing we can do is label our axes. So our x-axis will be the height in centimetres, and our y-axis will be our frequency density. Next we'll need to work out a suitable scale for both the x and y axis of this histogram. So if we start off with our frequency density, the values for our frequency density are between 1.2 and 10.2. So a suitable scale would be that every 5 squares is equal to a frequency density of 1. Next, the height. So we have heights ranging from 140 centimetres to 180 centimetres. So a suitable scale for this would be that every square is equal to 1 centimetre, so therefore every 10 squares would be equal to 10 centimetres. And we can start at 140 centimetres. So now the next thing we need to do is fill in this histogram. Now the way a histogram works is the area of each of the bars will be equal to the frequency. So this is a good way to check that our histogram is correct. So if we start off with the first piece of information, we have heights between 140 and 150 centimetres and a frequency density of 1.5. And when we draw it onto our table, it should look something like this. Next we have the heights between 150 and 155 centimetres and a frequency density of 6. So our bar should look something like this. Next we have a frequency density of 10.2, heights between 155 and 160 centimetres. And the bar should look something like this. Heights between 160 and 165 centimetres and a frequency density of 7.2. And then finally, heights between 165 and 180 centimetres with a frequency density of 1.2 should look like this. And this is our completed histogram. Now this question's worth 3 marks. We'll get our first and second mark for correctly filling out the histogram, and our third mark for correctly labelling the axes. Work out an estimate for the fraction of students who have a height between 150 centimetres and 170 centimetres. So for a histogram, the area is equal to the frequency. So in order to estimate the fraction of students with heights between 150 centimetres and 170 centimetres, we'll need to work out the area for the bars between 150 and 170 centimetres. Now in the question we're told that there are 150 students, And this is important to note down in order to estimate the fraction of students. So in our table we've already been told the number of students which are between 150 centimetres and 165 centimetres. So our frequency for the interval between 150 and 155 centimetres has been given to us as 30. Between 155 and 160 centimetres we've been told is 51 students. And finally, between 160 and 165, we've been told that there are 36 students. So now the final thing we need to do is work out the area of this bar between 165 and 170 centimetres. Now there's two ways of doing this. Because the area between 165 and 170 centimetres is exactly a third of the whole area of this bar between 165 and 180 centimetres, we can either divide our frequency by 3 or multiply our interval by our frequency density. So our interval is 5 and our frequency density is 1.2. So this gives us an answer of 6. So now the final thing we need to do is add together these four values. And this gives us an answer of 123. So 123 is an estimate for the number of students with a height between 150 and 170 centimetres. However, we want this as a fraction. So if there's 150 students in total, then 123 as a fraction of the total number of students will be 123 over 150. Now this question's worth 2 marks. We'll get our first mark for working out the number of students between 150 and 170 centimetres, and our second mark for the correct answer.